Hey everybody, how's it going? So today we're back for another Tutorial Tuesday, and this is the video I've been wanting to do forever. I never actually thought I'd be able to get to do it, but this is how I got the Black Album snare. All right, now you guys have heard me play this. I don't know how many times this track has wound up in a number of videos. The Mammoth Bass video, the Austrian Audio OC818, even last week's video where I showed you guys the 30 Hertz Pultec trick, which is actually kind of fairly common. A lot of guys are like, yeah, I've been doing that for years. And I'm like, you think you might have shared it with the rest of us? Thanks a lot, fuckers. Seriously, what a great trick. It would be just awesome if people would share really cool information like that more often than not, instead of, oh, hey, did you put the latest sample over your drums? Because that makes rock and roll sound awesome. This is one that doesn't rely on a sample. This is all just a real drum set played by an awesome drummer, Jackson Ward, who also has been doing a lot of the playing on my show as of recent, because Jackson is an amazing engineer and an amazing drummer, and he makes stellar tracks. He's also available to do tracks for your own projects. I'll throw a link in to his studio Strata recording. If you need some killer drum tracks that you won't have to replace with samples, I'd highly recommend checking Jackson out. His rates are extremely reasonable. And yeah, he's just a really great guy to work with. Black Album snare. He sent me a bit of information on it yesterday. And the insane thing is, this goes back for me 20 years. You know, I was working on a record called Rusted Icons by a local band called Betrayer. And that was the big argument back then. I was still in my V-drums phase back then. You guys wonder why I hate sample drums so much. Well, I go back to the early 2000s when I was working with mainly sample drums and electronic drum kits and all that bullshit. Trick is, nothing inherently wrong with sampled drums. It's don't be satisfied with just getting that. Push yourself forward and learn how to record the real thing, because it gets to be way more interesting. Anyway, so I'm working on Rusted Icons and we're dialing in the V-drum sounds, and you know, Jeff the singer's like, I want the Black Album snare, and I'm like, great, got $1 million, because that's how much Metallica blew on that record. And here's the thing, I've watched that 1.5 years of life Metallica video over and over and over again and learned so many cool things, but I never quite figured out how to get that amazing snare sound. And it only happened recently, like 20 years later. It's like, hey, Jeff, guess what? I finally got that snare sound, but too bad. I think the band broke up like about a decade ago. Now, the original snare on the Black Album was a Tama Bell Brass, which is a super rare snare drum. It's super heavy, very expensive, and loud as fuck. They had one actually at Blackbird Studio, and I got to check that out like 1.5 years ago at Warren of Warren's master classes there, and we got to go through their drum shop, and I'm like, whoa, cool, bell brass snare, let's bring it down to the studio. We mic'd it up, and it was like, yeah, it sounded like ungodly. I would really love to get my hands on a bell brass snare at one point or another. Insane thing is, we're not using a bell brass snare for this drum sound. This is like a pearl birch maple blend, but on this mix, it sounds very, very close. Now, I've loved the Black Album snare because it was one of the most unique sounding snares I have ever heard. It just sounded great. And I was dicking around with this with a bunch of different plugins and just trying some ideas. And once again, I kind of stumbled across it by accident. And this is the thing, I'm not going to play this here, because if I do, I'll get immediately, spotted by a bot, and all the income from this video will go to a record company that really doesn't need the money. So all I can say is go reference Wherever I May Roam and The Unforgiven, the snare drum on those tracks, and play it back against this. And you can hear exactly how close it's getting. Now, the insane thing is, once I look at it, it's like, oh, okay, this really isn't that difficult. This makes a whole lot of sense. In this particular mix, I'm using a lot of the AIX stuff. I'm using the Multiband Gate, which is fucking amazing. I've used that numerous times. The drum EQ, which is tuned for this drum, this insane EQ curve, because you can just watch where the fundamental for the drum is, and you can see the resonant frequencies, how to take them out to get the honk out. And then there's just a massive top end lift. You couple that with the multi-band gate, That's with that EQ and being compressed. But that multiband gate just stomps on everything but the frequencies and the sounds that we want. So there's a lot of real sharp gating going on there. Just piff, piff, piff. But it works like a fucking champ. But the big thing in this whole setup has got to be the intuition compressor. Now, the great thing I like about the AIX stuff is it really doesn't sound like anything else out there. I mean, like a lot of plugins that I really like, that I use quite a bit, are kind of set up to sound like old vintage gear. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Like I said, I really dig those plugins. The AIX stuff kind of has its own thing going on because you can tune this to a drum and whatnot. But watch what happens when we turn this compressor on and off. Just adds that much more sharpness. I don't even have much of a ratio going on. What's going on here, though, is the attack time and the threshold. The threshold is way, way, way down. Watch what happens when we take this threshold back. And we're just letting that initial attack through. Just piff. A little bit crack. That's fucking cool. And of course, we're hitting it with the back end limiter as well. If I want to throw in gain reduction, I think I can. Oh yeah, that's already on. Okay, great. So it's just totally pinned there. And it's like, you know, it's got a softening. I really, really do dig the AIX compressor. It gets some pretty damn unique sounds out of the drums. But instead of mixing the top mic and the bottom mic here, I'm mixing them as separate entities and just putting them together on the drum bus itself. And it just sounds massive. And the key here to this sound is the bottom mic, not the top. Now, the mic in question being used here is the AKG C214 mic. It's kind of like the baby brother of the C414. And if you recall, I'm using the Austrian Audio OC818 on the guitars, which is kind of like the big brother to the C414. Clear as mud? That's what I thought. Good. That's what I was going for. Now, I've used small diaphragm condensers on bottom snare forever. I've used different types of dynamic mics, small diaphragm like a 57 or a 58. And I've used large diaphragm dynamics as well, like a 421. And that Tua Madsen was the one who recommended that. And it's pretty cool. But this is very unique. I've never actually put a large diaphragm condenser mic underneath the snare. But the results we're getting are just stellar. This is like if I mute that out, that's just the bottom mic by itself. What the hell? Let's take the reverb off. Put the top mic in front. There we go. Boom. One more time. If we flip the phase on that, do we have a phase flip here? Just need to. Where is the chrome damn phase flip? Do I need to move this up a bit? There we go. Come on. There it is. Got to go way the hell up like this. There we go. That's really not making that big of a difference. Interesting. A little bit, but they're very different types of things. And the reason why that phase isn't really affecting too much is because the top mic's kind of getting the initial attack and the bottom mic is getting the sustain on the drum. There's a little bit of attack there, but it's nothing like this mic where it's just like pop, pop, pop. So that's kind of cool. Now what's going on here? Again, we'll take a look at all the effects going on. Same kind of an EQ curve as we saw on the snare top. But again, we're getting very aggressive with the compressor here, especially with the threshold. Like normally I'll compress a snare drum and I'll have the threshold about, negative 12 dBs, maybe a little bit more. Here I'm down all the way to 47 to let that initial attack through. Now, if we turn this off, that's bottom snare mic by itself. Now you hear the snare wires are being loosened off and they just go psst. And that's super cool. That lets the snare drum breathe. And we can do cool shit with it in post because of that, because we've got that breathing room. Oh no, here comes Warren.
What? What are you doing? What's going on? Wait, they're socially distanced. I got to stand back here.
Yeah, I'm educating people.
You're edumacating?
Yes. Should try it sometime. Anyway, before we're so rudely interrupted there by everybody's favorite English gentleman recording engineer dude, here we go. So, bottom snare mic, effects off. Wow, what a difference. So, just to go through this one at a time here, we're going to look at Multiband Gate. So we're set fairly aggressively on this. Just there's a 200 millisecond release in the high band and 345 milliseconds release in the mid band. Puff, puff. Bit of EQ. Yeah. We get that kind of scoopy thing going on. Again, we're lifting the bottom end a little bit and we're taking out some of the resonant frequencies so we don't get the whistle. Now, you guys ever see my video on, greatest tom EQ trick I ever learned? Same kind of principles being applied here to the snare, It's like if we crank that up, it's just doop. So we just want to get rid of that. Again, same with this guy. Ding! We don't want that. But we do want that nice high lift right here. Like if we take that out, it's nowhere nearly as fun. But the real fun comes when we kick in this compressor. This thing is just insane on drums. Off. So once again, we're just hitting it super hard with the threshold. Not even an insane ratio. We've got 147 millisecond attacks. So we're letting that initial attack through, but we're raising up the sustain like massively on this drum. If we pull this back, we want to hear. There's the initial attack, but we want to hear the sustain now. So we'll bring the threshold back a little bit. Just kind of find a happy medium there. So off to on. It's just nuts. And what we're doing here, and this is another big part of this drum sound, is now, this is verbiage. Now, I paid for this license years ago. I don't know what the hell happened to my license file, but I did buy this, and it's worth it. This is from Stillwell Audio, and this is one of my absolute favorite drum reverbs ever. I've been using it for years. Kind of reminds me a bit of an old Lexicon unit you would find in bigger studios in the 80s. It's got that kind of a feel. And actually, I'm kind of working off a preset that Nolly came up with. I've just kind of extrapolated it a little bit. There's not much going on here. Big room, medium room size, medium damping. There's no real shelving going on, and it's full wet. That's about it. But it's number 5 because we want that big, big drum room sound. Wow, what a difference. That's like the whole room's getting it. I'm sending a bit of the drum room to it. Yeah, you see this, I've got a fairly big amount of reverb going on that send there. And what do we got going on here? I don't have the white noise generator on there. I was experimenting with some white noise stuff. I'm going to look at that in the future because I just did an interview with Paul Lonnie, who mixed Megadeth Peace Cells, and this is going to be a really cool episode coming up. And he had some interesting thoughts to contribute on the whole white noise thing. So definitely going to be worth taking a look at. I definitely want to do an episode where we take a look at that and see how we can implement that into our drum mixes. It's still not a fucking sample, though. Don't even go there. Now, according to Jackson, the snare being used here was the Pearl Music City custom reference pure snare drum 14-inch. And like I said, this is a maple and birch blend. It just sounds phenomenal. Now, it's not a bell brass, but we're getting a very similar tone to what wound up on the record. So it lets me believe it's more about the choice in microphones and how it's processed as opposed to the actual drum sound itself. But it seems to me the real trick is just letting those snares off enough and maybe having a slow enough beat where you can let those notes really sing out, get that beautiful reverb on the snare. Super cool. Now, if you guys want to get your hands on the tracks and try experimenting with this yourself, I'd highly recommend following the link in the description below. Grab the tracks. I'm even going to throw my Reaper session file in here so you guys can play around with it and see exactly how I have it mixed, and hopefully you can steal some ideas and implement that into your own recordings, because I like sharing stuff like that because I think it's cool. And if you guys want to see more, if you have some more suggestions for Tutorial Tuesdays, hit me up. I'm always down to try out new things and hopefully learn something for myself as well and pass that along to you guys. So once again, if you like the series, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Hit that thumbs up button and of course, hit the subscribe button. It would really mean the world to me. So that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for watching. And don't forget, we got viewers' comments coming out Friday. So until then, get out there and make some metal, you magnificent motherfuckers.